The story begins at a university where the campus is a place of escape for college students, filled with dreams and romance. However, our protagonist, Changwook Choi, a sophomore, is far from having a refreshing university experience. He studies engineering, and as is common in this field, everyone tends to dress similarly, smoke constantly, have friends with jobs, and make plans for their own businesses. The most challenging part is the mathematical equations, which seem more complicated than hieroglyphs. Most importantly, everyone in the program is male, and to make matters worse, Choi has never interacted with any girls because he attended an all-boys middle and high school. Therefore, he thinks he will never have a relationship with a girl. In class, there was a girl apologizing for not answering calls and for not finding the data the group had asked for. The boys around her encouraged her, saying not to worry since they had done their part and would always be there to help her. This comforted Seola, who also thanked everyone for their support. This girl was a third-year student. From the beginning, Choi had wanted to be in work groups with her. 2 weeks ago, he was excited to be in the same group as Seola and Kem. Seola assigned Choi to be the group leader since he had the most knowledge, which embarrassed Choi. That's how he became a leader without realizing it. However, that satisfaction was short-lived because, during the second week of group work, although Seola had the easiest part, she only made excuses, and her admirers took care of completing all her tasks. Currently, Seola hadn't done anything all this time, but Choi knew that Kim had done an excellent job in research. Choi mentioned this to Kim, praising her impressive work. Kim thanked him for his words, but also looked embarrassed. However, Choi kept thinking that his classmates were only interested in Seola and not Kim. Later, when he approached Seola to remind her to bring her completed work next time, she nodded. After class, when the professor asked the leaders to submit their work to his assistant, Choi handed in his work. When the assistant saw Choi's name, she asked if he had forgotten about her, recognizing her as Yoo-min Lee, someone he had been a good classmate with before. When he went outside for a smoke, Choi was surprised to discover that Yoo-min was the professor's assistant. She, however, was more interested in why he was in first-year classes. This was because Choi had missed classes due to his grades. At that moment, other students arrived looking for Yoo-min, reminding her that she had to assign groups in her class. These guys seemed eager to talk to her about anything, and Choi noticed how they greeted their seniors as if they were in the military. But this was due to their friendliness. For Choi, Yoo-min had always been someone tolerant and easy to deal with, surrounded by both men and women. However, Choi continued walking his solitary path. Yoo-min was curious to know if Choi was in the same group as Seola, to which he confirmed. Yoo-min knew this would mean trouble. Her words turned out to be a premonition, as later, Seola announced in the group chat that her computer had broken down. This left Choi reflecting on how Seola had been like a ghost in her personal responsibilities with the group. On another occasion, Seola announced that she had a migraine, and the others in the group sympathized, telling her to rest. They also agreed to divide Seola's portion of the work among themselves. One day, Choi was quite upset because, once again, the entire group of boys told Seola not to worry since they would all do her part, which the girl greatly appreciated. However, Choi was very angry and called Seola to remind her that she hadn't done anything due to her illness, as well as the presentation he had previously requested from her. Choi was determined to remove her from the group, which worried Seola. Before anything else happened, Seola, sobbing, explained that she had tried to do her part. The boys around her tried to cheer her up, but she understood why they would remove her and knew she couldn't avoid it. This made all the boys in the group angry with Choi, forcing him to reconsider. Choi wanted to do something different. He wanted Seola to do her share of the work that weekend, thereby avoiding her expulsion from the group. This moved Seola, who showed a noticeable expression of happiness, which embarrassed Choi upon seeing how beautiful she looked. However, he also resolved to monitor her closely. That same Saturday, Seola informed the group that her grandfather had passed away and that she couldn't participate in the research, which greatly upset Choi because she had done it again. He wondered who could believe such a liar, but he also knew he had to be careful not to come off as a bad guy. Choi didn't know what else to do, but at that moment he received a call. When he answered, it was Kim Min-tae, a high school classmate of Choi, inviting him for a drink. Although Choi said he had a lot of homework, the thought of Seola came to mind, so he decided to go after finishing his tasks. Min-tae would meet him at the station because Choi believed that if he was too stressed, he needed to relax that night. After eating something, Min-tae still wasn't satisfied, so they found a rather peculiar bar. Although for Choi it seemed like a normal bar, Min-tae explained that it was a place where beautiful girls talked to you while you had a drink. This was curious to Choi, as he wasn't sure if old sharks like them would find anything interesting. A beautiful girl welcomed them, and upon taking a closer look around, Choi noticed it was exactly as Min-tae had explained. He was captivated by the girls there, as it was his first time entering such a place. The girl who greeted them suggested pairing them with a university student, pointing out someone behind a table talking to some gentleman. When she called her by name, Yuri, she turned around, and Choi realized it was Seola, leaving him stunned to discover she was the same girl from his university. She also noticed Choi, and although they didn't exchange words, all that went through Choi's mind was that this place was supposedly where they were mourning her grandfather. Later that same night, Min-tae was chatting with Seola, but Choi was completely annoyed. Despite that, he said nothing. During the conversation, Seola wondered if she was going crazy, while Choi knew what she was thinking since he remained silent and kept drinking. It was easy to guess. In reality, he wanted to send her to meet St. Peter, but only thought about it while continuing to drink. At that moment, he received a message. However, upon noticing the face of the girl interested in his actions, Choi headed to the bathroom to make his call, leaving Seola worried. In the bathroom, Choi was about to leave when suddenly someone grabbed him, pulling him back inside. Choi was completely incredulous, asking what Seola was doing locking him in. At that moment, he reminded her of her fake name, but Seola was more interested in knowing if he had told anyone else and seemed quite agitated. Angrily, Choi exclaimed that he would tell everyone around him about the famous goddess of purity working in a bar. She begged him to wait and wanted him to keep everything a secret, inviting him to dinner as a way to persuade him. However, this didn't convince Choi since she wanted to talk about the project, but he reminded her that the others were already taking care of it. Seola tried to convince Choi to keep her secret due to her situation. For him, it was quite amusing because every time she was cornered, she cried and made excuses. He felt like a fool because all he wanted was an apology. He mentioned how all the group members stayed up late because of her situation, and how she only cared about herself. Although Seola accused Choi of threatening her for missing a group assignment and believed he was as bad as her, to Choi, she looked crazy. Seola wanted him to keep her secret, because if it got out, she wouldn't be able to return to school. For Choi, it was still just her problem, and he asked why he should keep her secret. Choi thought she might apologize now, but instead she offered to clean his chalice, which left Choi a bit incredulous. However, Seola was determined to clean it. Choi didn't believe she was serious, but Seola asked why he looked so scared. These words angered Choi, who then wanted her to actually clean the chalice. This left Seola blushing slightly, but she was willing to do it just to keep her secret safe. Before anything could happen, Choi thought about how pretty Seola was, especially as she was the goddess of engineering, popular for her innocent style. Still, he couldn't understand how she worked in such a place since a goddess like her was in front of him with a better view than expected. To top it off, Seola accidentally hit her head. Although she thought it was Choi, she soon realized it was the chalice, leaving her deeply embarrassed. Choi noticed Seola had no idea where to start cleaning, so he suggested she show him some sweet bread she had with her. Although embarrassed, Seola showed it to him. In her mind, Seola hated the situation, but somehow she felt relieved until they suddenly heard a voice. It was Min-tae, but Choi only said he had a stomachache. They were talking about whether Yuri would give Min-tae her phone number, and Choi believed she would. Suddenly, Choi made a strange noise, which was actually because his stomach really started to hurt, if you know what I mean. Still, Choi whispered to Seola that she was crazy. Despite that, Seola continued her work cleaning the chalice as she had promised. Since Choi wasn't coming out, his friend went back to his table while Choi, trying to calm his pain, received a prayer from Seola, asking God to ease his stomachache, which ended up relieving his pain. Seola was about to leave when Choi asked her to wait a moment. She thought Choi wanted another prayer, but he just wanted to fix her hair since she still had a bit of holy water on it. This made Seola blush, and she quickly fixed her hair and was about to leave. Before going, she wanted to let Choi know that she would do her best to complete her assignments, asking him to keep her secret. This left Choi alone, unable to believe what had happened, thinking he might even be dreaming. The next Monday, at the study cafe, Choi was surprised because Seola attended the group meeting for the first time, something she always skipped. More surprisingly, she had completed her assignments, which made Choi suspect she just didn't want to get caught. Choi knew this but wanted to say something to Seola, and she listened attentively. Choi was happy she had done her tasks, but pointed out all the issues in her report and how she could fix them, asking her to submit it the next day. Choi's teammates were upset with him for bothering Seola during her first time joining the group. Seola was also saddened by the harsh feedback, especially since it came so suddenly. Choi then started joking about her nickname, Crystal, which changed Seola's attitude. She promised to complete the corrections without fail, which cheered Choi up and confused his teammates because of Seola's sudden shift in behavior. Choi also praised Kim for her good work, which she appreciated. Still, Choi made comments to tease Seola further. He even asked her what she would do if he didn't speak to her politely. Seola, however, was determined to work harder. Meanwhile, Choi's friends were jealous of how he interacted with both girls. Yoo-min, who was present, overheard everything that had happened. That same afternoon, while Choi was smoking, he heard a voice asking him how he managed to do it. Choi realized it was Yoo-min, who was curious about how he had made Seola obedient. Choi tried to avoid the question, but Yoo-min now wanted to know if he was aware of how women in engineering schools are ranked. She explained that it wasn't based on their appearance, but rather on the type of guy they dated. If a girl dated a first-year student, her rank was low, but if her boyfriend was from another school, her rank was high. However, this didn't apply if the boyfriend was from outside the school. In Seola's case, it was different. From the moment she joined the school, she became the queen of engineering, thanks to all the boys she managed to charm. Yoo-min pointed out that Seola had never done her own assignments, as her entourage was always eager for her attention. But now, Seola was obeying Choi, and Yoo-min wanted to know his secret. In Choi's mind, he thought about Seola's secret and couldn't say anything, so he joked that she had fallen for his masculine charm. Yoo-min found this hilarious, which hurt Choi's feelings a bit. However, they soon started reminiscing about another classmate working at a chicken restaurant, which shifted the conversation. They continued talking about it that afternoon as it brought back many memories for Choi. After a while, Choi had to leave to do his homework. Before he left, Yoo-min said she enjoyed spending time with him and asked him not to act like a stranger in the future. That night, Choi knew Yoo-min was very focused on her studies, which he admired. Still, he wondered if she was trying to rely on him. Realizing it was already quite late, he decided to head home. As he stepped outside, the night was chilly, and the dark university surroundings felt eerie. However, he noticed someone nearby. It was a surprise for him to see her at that hour, but he wondered where the girl was going since there was no one else around, leaving him intrigued. Because of this, he followed her from a distance to ensure she was safe and didn't face any danger. Choi kept questioning where she might be going, but just as he was about to call out to her, Yoo-min took off her jacket due to the heat, revealing an impressive cosplay, which bewildered Choi even more. The girl began looking around to check if anyone had followed her, and Choi quickly hid. He wondered why he had hidden as if he were following a secret, yet he continued observing her. To make things even more surprising, she started playing the guitar outdoors. Choi didn't know what was happening, especially since he thought Yoo-min was a very reserved person, but now he was watching her sing, which left him utterly confused. Unfortunately for him, a couple was heading in the direction where Yoo-min was, putting Choi in a tricky situation since they could discover her secret. To prevent this, Choi began making owl sounds, scaring the couple away with the strangeness of the situation, which was a huge relief for him. However, Yoo-min was also startled and asked who was there. Quickly, Choi decided to leave to avoid being misunderstood, running straight home. Upon arriving, he couldn't find his wallet anywhere, so he went to the Lost and Found Center and the conference room where he had been, but he was unsuccessful. He suddenly thought it might be at the spot where Yoo-min had been, so he ran there, but still found nothing. He wondered if Yoo-min could have picked it up, but this thought also revealed that he wouldn't be able to face her again. Still, Choi was upset that she had been playing the guitar in that place, so much so that his frustration made him feel like he was going crazy. Once again, he startled the same couple as before. A few days later, Choi was at the university, thinking about how Yoo-min hadn't mentioned anything to him, which was a relief. It could mean she didn't have his wallet. At that moment, he saw her in the distance, but when she turned around, she was waving at some engineering students and seemed a bit distracted. The boys kept insisting that she was only paying attention to them. Behind them, Choi was hiding from Yoo-min, as it would still feel uncomfortable to see her. Thinking it was for the best, he kept avoiding her, unsure if he felt relieved or stressed about the situation. He decided to act as if nothing had happened and greet her casually. What he didn't notice was that Seola was calling out to him again. The girl spoke louder this time, and Choi finally heard her, realizing it was Seola and drawing the attention of those around him. Seola simply wanted to know if he had checked the email she sent him, but Choi had been busy, which annoyed her as she had rushed to complete that part of her work. In response, Choi asked if she had any complaints and brought up the name Yuri, which irritated Seola further. She cornered him to see if he had any issues with her regarding that, reminding him that she had already paid the price and asking that they take things slowly from now on. Everyone around them was paying attention to this situation. After that, Seola said goodbye to Choi, asking him to check his email. Choi also heard whispers from people nearby, so he cautiously smiled and ran off, worried about being misunderstood by Seola's followers. That afternoon, all the boys in his group were curious about how he had managed to get so close to Seola during the day, until he heard a voice. It was Yoo-min calling him. Choi felt it was a shame, since he had to leave for something he had pending, though in reality, he felt uncomfortable about what had happened. That was until Yoo-min handed him his wallet, which she had picked up that day. This put Choi in a nervous spot as he tried to explain himself, but Yoo-min wanted to know if he had seen everything. Feeling even more embarrassed, Choi explained that it wasn't intentional, apologized for seeing her, and explained why he had been at that spot suddenly. Yoo-min told him to lower his voice, though Choi countered by saying he would pretend he hadn't seen anything and wouldn't tell anyone. He was about to leave when Yoo-min asked him to wait. At that moment, Choi turned around and was surprised by what he saw. Yoo-min was taking off her sweatshirt. This intrigued Choi, making him wonder what was going on with Yoo-min, but she simply wanted him to stop pretending he hadn't seen anything. Choi only wanted to know why she was in her Eva cosplay, adding that someone could discover her. The girl explained that when he was spying on her while she was playing the guitar, she had felt excited, despite Choi insisting that he wasn't spying. Yoo-min knew that seeing someone without their permission was spying, leaving Choi speechless. Even so, he said it was an accident and that he had also helped her avoid being discovered. Yoo-min asked what would have happened if no one had come by, which left Choi silent again. At that moment, they heard voices approaching, so Choi quickly hid Yoo-min until the people left. Choi couldn't stop thinking about how terrifying it was, knowing they could have been discovered. Then Yoo-min told him she couldn't breathe because he was hugging her too tightly. Choi immediately stepped back, apologizing not only for that but for everything he had seen and the panic he had felt as he didn't know how to react. This saddened Yoo-min, as she thought he had also been excited to see her. In Choi's mind, he needed to explain himself because, if not, they would treat him like a pervert. He told Yoo-min that he wasn't excited and that he was the victim. Seeing the girl's expression, he continued his speech, saying that it was traumatic for him to see her in cosplay and, to make matters worse, playing the guitar outdoors, damaging his sight. Upon hearing this, Yoo-min apologized, which left Choi incredulous. More than anything, Yoo-min had misunderstood everything. She now believed that the boy must be traumatized by the incident. Choi thought that if Yoo-min kept blaming herself, he might end up looking like the bad guy. Yoo-min then admitted that she had a strange habit of dressing in cosplay and playing the guitar outdoors. But when he discovered her, she inexplicably felt excited that he had seen her. She said it would be fine if he hated her, because she understood if he called her a pervert, and she apologized again. Choi thought about consoling her and told her she looked really good because she was beautiful, and seeing her made him want to go home and play with Fifi. To Yoo-min, this sounded like a lie, but Choi was being sincere, as he couldn't help but look at her. Yoo-min realized that although he was trying to comfort her, he was speaking earnestly when she saw Fifi was present. Choi felt truly embarrassed about how the situation had unfolded, but Yoo-min sincerely thanked him for not holding a grudge against her and for not distancing himself, despite knowing her embarrassing secret. To Choi, it wasn't anything unusual to feel a bit excited about the experience. Yoo-min then asked him to keep her secret and assured him she wouldn't share it with anyone, as it was a difficult matter for her. However, the girl now saw a positive side to the situation. If Choi helped her maintain her secret, she would be willing to support him in another situation. Choi wasn't sure exactly what Yoo-min meant, but he reminded her that he wouldn't repeat the experience that day since he didn't want to risk running into her again. However, Choi did think it would be nice to visit a magical town. Yoo-min, on the other hand, was convinced her spot was safe due to her experience in the cosplay world. Finally, Yoo-min showed her cosplay to Choi, who was curious to see it from the back. Since her first year at university, Yoo-min had always been known as one of the most admired girls on campus due to her laid-back personality. Despite being good friends, Choi had always seen her as an unattainable mountain. This time, Yoo-min stepped aside a little, telling him not to get too excited, which confused Choi. She only wanted him to see her play the guitar. Choi had thought she was referring to a prayer together, but that wasn't the case. Now, however, Choi was interested in hearing her play the guitar, which surprised Yoo-min as she thought he didn't like music. They were ready to enjoy the melody when, suddenly, they heard voices that startled them. It was the boys from their class who were there to smoke and knew Yoo-min frequented that place, though she hadn't been there at that moment. Both Choi and Yoo-min hid, aware of how risky the situation could be. As they listened to the boys talking about Yoo-min and how she had gotten her position as a professor's assistant, Choi couldn't help but feel the boys were a bit shallow, only discussing Yoo-min's appearance. Both decided to leave the place, as it felt uncomfortable. Choi noticed that Yoo-min genuinely wanted to pray, as her eyes reflected a sincere commitment to spirituality at that moment. Although at first she didn't seem interested, she was now determined to learn more about the topic. Choi thought Yoo-min was a little crazy about the situation, but saw her as committed to finding spiritual meaning. Although he tried not to deny it, Choi realized that this would be the first time Yoo-min approached a belief in God, which resonated in his mind as he watched the nearby boys continue smoking nonchalantly. After their prayers, both Choi and Yoo-min continued their devotion to the Lord. However, before they could meet and share a kiss, one of the boys approached the area due to the sounds he had heard. He didn't find anyone, as Choi and Yoo-min had managed to hide in time. The boy's friends called him to join them, but Yoo-min wanted to continue with her mass, which worried Choi as he feared they might be discovered. Finally, when the boy's friends left, Yoo-min and Choi felt more at ease. Although Yoo-min appeared fine, Choi noticed she seemed a little disappointed that they hadn't been found. Though she jokingly denied it, Choi called her a pervert, and seeing that no one else would return, Yoo-min insisted on continuing her prayers for the day, asking Choi to accompany her. This caused Choi to blush, as he knew that this spiritual purification had its peculiar moments. When they finished, they heard more voices from evening students. Choi helped Yoo-min put on her sweatshirt before anyone could see them. Once in the hallway, Choi scolded Yoo-min for her lack of caution, though the girl was still sweating from the sprint they had taken. Hearing more voices approaching, Yoo-min pushed Choi into an empty classroom. Choi wondered what the girl was doing, but Yoo-min knew the room was usually vacant and was dissatisfied with the earlier mass, so she wanted to continue her sermon. Despite knowing that the classroom next door was in use, this didn't deter Yoo-min from wanting to pray a Lord's Prayer. In the adjacent room, some youths commented on having seen more people in the hallway, as from a distance, they thought they had seen shadows. Choi grew a little worried about the class next door because if it got later, more people would arrive, making it more dangerous. Despite this, Yoo-min noticed Choi's energy was still low and assumed it was because he wasn't in good shape. She called him weak, which really hurt and angered Choi. He explained that his strength depended on how attractive Yoo-min was, wounding her pride in return. In response, Yoo-min chose to pray alone to prove she could do it without his help. After a complete mass and hearing the word of the Lord, Yoo-min was excited. At one point, they heard people outside in the hallway, but that only made Yoo-min want to purify her soul even more. When they finally left, Choi felt relieved of his worries. For him, it was a great achievement to see Yoo-min purified, though she still wanted to continue with the mass a little longer. When they finished, Yoo-min couldn't keep her eyes open and fainted on the spot. Upon waking, she found herself in Choi's apartment, as he had carried her there, not knowing where her house was. Yoo-min understood this, but for Choi, it had been difficult to get her out of the university. Now, Yoo-min considers Choi her accomplice in her cosplays, which Choi found ridiculous. He didn't want her to do that because they might get caught. That's why Yoo-min wanted to explain to him when she started doing it, since he had become her accomplice. Choi would listen intently to understand why the cheerful Yoo-min had such tastes.